We go to the Eastern Conference and the Commonwealth, the location, the Sixers visiting Boston. Game number 5 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. The series tied up 2-2 to the Parquet. The location there, the much-anticipated Game 5. The winner of Game 5 in a 2-2 series has gone on to win 83% of the time. That tells you what has happened, not necessarily what's going to happen. So, I don't know if you saw this game or not. It was the early game on the NBA fight card. And maybe you had stuff going on and you missed it, whatever might have been going on. So we watched it. If you missed it, the MVP playing like an MVP in this game. Joel Embiid, 33 points. He powered them down, grabbed 7 rebounds, not that many. Philadelphia pummeling Boston 115-103, a game that was not that close. The 76ers led by as many as 21 points, controlled the lead for the final 43 minutes. The last lead the Celtics had was about the 7-minute mark, give or take. And so for the rest of the game, the Sixers were up. And for most of the game, they were up by double digits as they controlled this game. The better story is where the Shamrocks reside, as our friend Paul in Rhode Island likes to say. And so the C's fans, boo! They were booing the team off the court as they walked off the parquet there. They deserved to be booed. That was a boo-tastic performance by the hometown team. So the question, who gets to wear the dunce cap for the Celtics in this one? So I've got the Frito Bandito, Gulfstream, and Party Foul. And no one else has this content. We are the only show that has it, so we'll give it to you right now. So, number 1. Number 1. You start with Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum has a problem. I had this problem when I was in high school, so I kind of relate to Jason Tatum. I was not the most punctual student. I like to take my time getting to class and things like that, and caused me some problems. That's why I got into radio. The one job, you have to be there. You can't be late. You have to be there when the show starts, or you are screwed. You are screwed. So Jason Tatum, he's got a problem being punctual. And in boxing, I like boxing. I'm not really into the whole UFC. I watch an occasional UFC fight, but I'm old school. I like the big boxing match. So you watch boxing, and there's a phrase which has been hijacked by other sports. It says, you have to answer the bell. And that is a boxing term that goes back to the old days. And it's kind of obvious. You be prepared. You're a fighter. You got to be prepared. At the start of each round, when you come out of your corner, they ring the bell. And Jason Tatum has shown a skill set which is really impressive if you're someone that doesn't like showing up to your job on time. He has been bedraggled at the beginning of these games for the Celtics, and sometimes he's able to get away with it. Oftentimes he's not. This is one of those games. First quarter, Tatum set the tone, set the mood, lighting, candlelight lighting, the whole thing, and 0 for 5 in the first quarter from the floor for Jason Tatum. And Jaylen Brown, now he picked up some of the slack for the Celtics. He shot the ball pretty well, but regardless, the star, everything flows through Jason Tatum here. And now that's 2 consecutive games where Tatum has been unfashionably late to the party. And maybe we recommend a thing called Lombardi time. Now, what is Lombardi time? Lombardi time is old school. To expedite the process or process, if you're on time, you're actually late. That's Lombardi time. Right? I remember reading about this when I was younger, and there's like Lombardi, you had to be there 15 minutes early with the Green Bay Packers back in the old days. And Tom Coughlin, who used to coach the Giants and the Jags and some other college teams, whatever, old Boston College coach, Tom Coughlin, he's like, you got to be there, I think it was 5 minutes early, I think, for Tom Coughlin. But whatever the case, whatever Tatum's doing now is not working. It's not working. And the other problem here, and I fight this battle, I had people who were texting me saying, hey, I heard some guy on the radio say that Steph Curry had a good game, and you said he didn't have a good game the other night. I was like, yeah, he took 30 shots to get 31 points. So that's not a good game. Well, Jason Tatum, who I believe is related to the Frito Bandito. Why is Jason Tatum related to the Frito Bandito? I will tell you. He's a second cousin. His name is the Stat Bandito. That's his name because that was some serious stat stuffing by Jason Tatum. The game was out of hand. Tatum scored 36 points on 27 shots. Did nothing of note in the entire first half. Took 11 shots, made only 3 of them in the first 24 minutes. You talk about a way to impress dumb people that don't actually watch these games. Because there are people like, I didn't see the game, but I looked at the box score. He had 27 points. While he was on the court, the fact of the night, fun fact of the night, while Tatum was on the court for the Celtics, they were outscored by 26 points. When Tatum was on the bench for about 9 minutes, give or take 9 minutes, the Celtics outscored the Sixers by 14. So they were actually tangibly better when Tatum was wearing a towel around his neck and drinking some kind of sports beverage. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. And what happened to the home court advantage for the Celtics? Their last 19 playoff games in the Jason Tatum era, they are now under 500 at home in their last 19 playoff games. They are 9-10. I thought that was supposed to be an advantage, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know basketball. Now, the second thing, page 2. So how are things looking for Joe Mazzulla? So we began this diatribe by pointing out that the dunce cap goes to one Jason Tatum as among the players, but, oh, man, holy canola. Joe Mazzulla, he might want to go over to his LinkedIn page and update his resume. I'm just saying, you might want to update your resume at this point. Not over yet, but this is a demoralizing situation. You have no resume as a bona fide successful head coach if you're Joe Mazzulla. And he was guilty of insubordination. He futched around a winnable game, let him play Joe, and he didn't call timeout at the end of regulation, the end of overtime. And so the Celtics decided, a team with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, let's let Marcus Smart shoot the shot. Let's let him shoot the shot. And we know how that turned out. But game 4, Celtics had a 5-point lead with a couple minutes to go in regulation. They were up by a couple of points with 20 seconds to go, and they end up losing. And so now you compound that with just a no-show from Tatum and the Celtics. And so now they're down 3-1. And that is when Missoula got called to the carpet. And he was forced to issue a mea culpa as he comes out very angrily. That's his technique with the media, that's his style, whatever. He complains, he's grumpy. Even when the Celtics win, Joe Mazzulla's he's bitching about something. So he's complaining, and you look at this, and it's like, whoa. So he screwed up the other game. He gets called to the carpet. How do we know that? Because he issued a mea culpa. And so he's holding on right now by his fingernails. He's grabbing on by his fingernails, and he's about to fall into the demon sinkhole. The lava lakes is bubbling up right now for Joe Mazzulla if they do not come back. You got to have a fall, guy. They're not getting rid of Tatum. And so you get rid of Missoula and get some other jabroni in there to coach the Celtics. If they don't rally back, and they're facing the theoretical hellfire and damnation here, and Joe has a Gulf Stream waiting for him, destination unknown, but it's close to Dante's Inferno if Boston does not come back in this series. And again, I go back to the fact there's no track record. Ime Udoka's not walking back through that door. They had to get rid of him because the Wokesters got all upset, and he had been fishing off the company pier. You're not supposed to fish off the company pier. So they pivoted to somebody else, and now Jason Tatum's the golden boy. He's the object of worship and all that. Now, it's also conceivable that Jaylen Brown is also gone, but I think if the Celtics, the way I look at this, if you go by the comps, there's no reason to keep Joe Mazzulla. Like, is he a nice guy? Well, you can put him in the organization somewhere and have him work in the front office, but he's got no resume. You can't waste these years. If Jason Tatum's legit, who knows if he is or not, maybe he's a fraud, but if he's legit, this is your window of opportunity. Not that coaches matter all that much, but a bad coach can derail you. A great coach doesn't help you per se, but a terrible coach can cost you a game, and we've seen that here. And so Jaylen Brown, whether he migrates out of Boston or not, and the smart money says he's not going to be back because he wants out, and they're not going to pay him and whatever, but Missoula's on thin ice. Now, final point. Does this count? Does this win count as a signature moment in the career of Joel Embiid in Philadelphia. So I am shaking my head no on this. Reggie Miller, if you're watching the game on TNT, got a little carried away. There at the end of the game, and he proclaimed that this was a signature win for Joel Embiid. And methinks not so much. Long thought process, which lasted about 2 seconds. Disagree. We can pump the brakes on that. That is what's called a party foul, a premature take, because this is going to blow Reggie Miller away. You need to win 4 games to advance. Winning 3 does not cause you to advance in a best-of-7 playoff series, unless I'm mistaken on it. Maybe they changed the rules, and they didn't tell me about that. Out of an abundance of caution, so the players don't have to play in an extra game. They just have to win 3 games in a 7-game series. But the report card, get to the point, please. The report card is incomplete. It is. Joel Embiid has merely positioned himself to get to the Final Four. He's not in the Final Four yet, but he's in position to get to the Final Four, and he hasn't done anything of note. And the Sixers, while to the untrained eye, they're in great shape, and while Joe Mazzulla does not look like he can coach his way out of a wet paper bag, that said, I have seen Doc Rivers coach teams do their magic. So I am not burying the Celtics yet, because if you're ever needing to come back, no, seriously, if you ever need to come back against an NBA team, the coach you want on the other side is Glenn Rivers. That's the guy you want. He is the gold standard for needing the Heimlich maneuver. There is no coach ever that has matched the ineptitude of Doc Rivers in the postseason. He is the GOAT of blowing playoff series. Did it twice with the Clippers. I think I read this. We talked about this a couple years ago, the last time he did it. But Doc Rivers' coach teams have blown 3 series where they're up 3 games to 1. No other coach has blown more than 1. And say, well, it's 3-2. If you blow a 3-1 series lead, I'm going to go out on a limb. It's a little easier to blow a 3-2 series lead with Game 7 on the road. Although that doesn't seem to be a problem for anybody that comes to Boston these days, because they all do well against the Celtics. So it ain't over yet, but things are not looking good for Joe Mazzulla. The good news for him and the Celtics is they do have Doc Rivers on the other side.